Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is for the Mav Pack from Linds Handmade. I know there are so many videos out for this pattern, and probably almost everybody's already made one before anyway. But I had to make this video whenever I found out that Royal Pixie Custom Fabrics was doing panels and coordinating prints specifically designed for the Mav Pack. These are so adorable, so cute, and I knew I wanted to make one. So this is actually the first one, if you can believe it, I ever made, and I made it last night. I had seen the pattern, thought it was perfect, but just hadn't made one yet, and so this was the motivation for me to make one. But I picked this one, and look at this one. So cute, and here's the coordinating for it. Now this one that I sewed last night is a cotton woven. This one's actually a cotton canvas. I have seen people make this pattern in clear vinyl and regular vinyl. I definitely plan on making more of these. It comes together in the way that I love. Quick, easy, simple. This is an amazing pattern. If you don't have it, I do highly suggest the pattern. You can see it's not very deep, it's not very wide, but it is perfect. Or if you don't want to carry a bunch of stuff, you know, a small wallet, a couple snacks, your car keys, you know, chapstick, little things. You don't want to carry everything. I made this one as the one side sling version. You can easily put another connector right here. You could wear this as a backpack, whatever you want. So yes, it's great for kids. I'm going to give this one to my great nephew actually, but it's good for adults too. It's just a really cute style. I will have a link in my description for the website where you can find the panels, and she's also going to have hardware packs. And now let's go ahead and talk about the pieces we will need, but just know that everything you see in my video is going to be from Royal Pixie Custom Fabrics. So I have 4 main panels, 2 exterior, 2 lining. All of mine are going to be cotton canvas. I did go ahead and interface all of them with a medium weight interfacing. The 2 exterior pieces, there's a separate pattern piece you can use to cut out, and the pattern says Decaville Light. So that is what I have for my exterior and my lining, no Decaville Light. You could also go ahead and mark your centers on the top and the bottom of these pieces. If you want, the pattern piece has the markings for your gusset. You could go ahead and put those on each side of your exterior only. For your lining, one of your pieces, we will use the pattern piece to draw the cut line on one of our lining pieces. We will cut this, and then this is what we'll use, these 2 pieces, to make our interior zipper pocket. So that is our main panel pieces. Then we are going to have 2 pieces for the interior pocket. This is going to be our D-ring connector. So the pattern piece actually looks like this. First thing I do is I draw a line right down the middle, and then I fold each edge in to meet that line. I will not fold it again. I will leave it just like that. We will top stitch down both of the long sides of this piece. This is one of our first steps we'll do, our prep work. So I'm going to sit this right here at my machine so I can sew that whenever we finish talking about our pieces. The next thing I have is I have the interior zipper. I went ahead and added my pull to it. I have 2 zipper tabs clipped here on it. For the interior zipper, go ahead and add your pull. And what we will do with this is we will take our 2 zipper tabs and we will just place one right sides down, which makes it right sides together with our zipper. We'll do the same on the other side. And then we have our zipper tape already prepped and ready to sew. You're going to use the seam allowance given in the pattern and just sew across that top edge. The next piece of zipper tape we're going to use is for our exterior. The measurements are given in the pattern, but basically I always know that I want my zipper tape to be a little bit longer than my zipper panel. So for this pattern, we have 2 zipper panel pieces, an exterior and a lining. Both of mine are the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my zipper tape. I'm not going to add a pull onto this just yet. I'm going to sew it first and then add the pull at the end. So I'm going to take my lining zipper panel and I'll place it right sides up. I'll take my zipper tape and I'll lay it down right sides up. I'll go ahead and add some clips there. And then for this step, this will be prepped also, and we will just baste the zipper tape on to the lining zipper panel. I will set the exterior over here onto the side, and we will use it after we baste the zipper tape onto the lining panel. The next thing you're going to have is your 2 gusset pieces. You will have 1 exterior and 1 lining. I went ahead and interfaced these the same as my other pieces. I did consider putting a piece of Decaville Light on this, but I'm not going to, but I can see where some might want to. You can see it's a little soft there. So if you want to add that, just make sure you keep it out of your seam allowances. I don't think that would be a problem, and I think it might help give you a little bit more stability. Even though mine doesn't have it, it still stands up fine. I just wanted to make that mention. So now let's talk about the back of our backpack. These are our connectors. So our connectors are made up of a series of pieces. The first thing we have is that D-ring that we've already talked about. So you can see that D-ring is this part right here and this part right here. After we top stitch this D-ring, we're going to cut it in half. That is what we will attach our 2 D-rings to. Then we have this bottom piece. This bottom piece is going to be this piece right here. It's called our D-ring anchor. What we're going to do is we're just going to fold it together, and then we're going to cut down that line. We will only use 1 piece of this, and unless you want to put an anchor on each side of your backpack. This piece right here is called your strap topper. You will have 2 of those. And the way we'll do these is we'll fold these right sides together, but we won't sew them until we put our D-ring in the middle. So don't do anything with these just yet. We'll wait on these. I have yet to make a strap for this. Like I said, I just finished this last night around midnight. So I don't know for sure what kind of strap I'm using. The pattern gives us these adorable strap connectors. So I might do this. And then it also gives you a pattern piece for a strap end. So I'm not for sure. So I will decide by the end of this video. But I'm still trying to figure out what type of strap and what webbing or what I'm going to use on that. So I'm going to just set these aside. I'm also going to set aside 2 swivel hooks so I'll be able to connect my strap to my backpack. For my exterior zipper, I'm again going to use 2 zipper pulls. I will not attach those until after we prep our zipper panels here, so I'm just going to set those 2 zipper pulls aside. You could just use 1 zipper pull if you wanted to. And the last thing I need is binding. I am choosing the binding method for this bag. I want to point out that Linds in the pattern, this is a berthed bag. It is a double berth. I'm doing this as binding. I just love binding. I know she mentioned that she chose to do this as a berth bag because she loved the clean looks, and you don't have those with binding. I agree with that. She's accurate, and I can see her benefits to not wanting to do the binding. But I think it's a personal preference too, because I love the look of binding. So I'm using binding in this one. There are several videos that show the birthing process if you would prefer to do that method, but for this video, we will be binding. So that is all the pieces we need to get started sewing up this Mav backpack. Let me just go over what our first prep steps will be. The D-rings, I'm going to just top stitch down both sides. The exterior zipper and the zipper panel lining, I'm just going to baste down the long edge to attach those two pieces. And then the interior zipper and the two zipper tabs, I'm just going to sew across both of those. After I sew across both of these, I'm going to go ahead and flip it up and do my just normal top stitch. So let's go ahead and start sewing these pieces to get everything prepped. I'm just going to fold that in half. I'm just going to make a cut, slip on each of my D-rings. I'll put a clip at the bottom, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch right underneath to kind of hold that D-ring in place. And so that isn't a requirement, it's just something I like to do personally. So I'm going to do that. And I know I sew patterns kind of out of order and bunch steps together. It is because this is the way I teach in person to classes. What we do is we kind of give a lot of instructions and then everybody can go back to their machine. So we come up to a table to teach and then they go back, and it kind of works. So if this method doesn't work for you, please let me know in the comments, because I definitely want to make tutorials that are easy to follow and understand. So for the zipper panel, this is the lining, this is my zipper. I'll take the exterior piece and I'll go ahead and place it right sides down on the zipper. So that means right sides are together with the zipper. Definitely want to put a few clips on this, and make sure if you cut your zipper longer than your panel that everything's lining up with the lining piece, not with the zipper. You're going to sew this together now with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. After I sew these two pieces together with the full seam allowance, I'm just going to clip them wrong sides together, and then I will just have them like this, and I will top stitch down both sides 1/8 of an inch away from the edge on the exterior zipper panel. So now we got this zipper started with the tabs. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and cut down that line that I drew. I know that my zipper is going to go in between. I do want it closing to the left. So the way I'm going to do this, that's my exterior. Here is one of my zipper pocket pieces. I'm going to baste my zipper onto this lining pocket piece. But if I do it this way with the zipper closing to the left, whenever I attach this bottom, it will be the wrong way. So I'm going to attach my zipper, so the zipper's right side up, lining's right side up, and the pull is closing to the right. When we turn it, we will see whenever we add the exterior and flip it, it'll be the right way. So let's go back to the machine and do these next few steps. Okay, so my D-rings, I am going to go ahead and take these now and set them aside. I'm going to wait just a few minutes before I finish the next steps with them. So let's set them off to the side. The zipper panel with the zipper attached, we top stitch down both sides. Everything's attached and connected. What I want to do now is I want to put my zipper pulls on. I'm going to add one from both ends so that they can meet in the middle to close. And then I will trim down my zipper tape. Okay, so now I got that ready to go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab out those two gusset pieces. We have both an exterior and a lining. I'm going to let this be my exterior. So I'm going to place it right sides down onto my zipper panel. So it's going to be right sides together with the zipper teeth and the exterior zipper panel. I'm just going to clip here at the short end. Now I'm going to flip it over so I'm looking at the lining and the wrong side of the zipper. I will take my lining gusset piece and I'm going to attach it at that same short end. And I will have it right sides together with the wrong side of the zipper tape. But we have a zipper sandwich. What I will do is I will just sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. I'm going to go ahead while I'm at the machine and sew the other short end. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just lifting up that exterior gusset and kind of folding it so that I can attach it to the other end of the zipper. Doing the same thing with the gusset lining piece. If you're uncomfortable with doing it like this, you can do one at a time. You can baste first, but this is what it'll look like. And that'll just save me a little bit of time to sew both of these short ends at the same time with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So we will do that. Then we will come over to this interior zipper pocket piece we've got started. We're going to grab the bottom piece. The bottom piece is going to be the bigger piece. You're going to take it and you're going to place it right sides together with your zipper tape. Going to match everything up. Make sure it's centered. And put a few clips at the top here, and then we will go ahead and sew this with the seam allowance given in the pattern also. Once we sew with that seam allowance given in the pattern, we're just going to flip them so they're wrong sides together, and it'll be looking like this. And then we'll just top stitch across that bottom edge 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge that we just sewed. So this is what our gusset looks like right now. We're just going to flip everything so that it's all the right sides out. And then what I want to do is I want to take the time to baste everything together and to top stitch. So we'll top stitch both this edge and this one down here. But then we're going to baste along both of these long sides so that everything is secure and it's not flopping around. And so when we go to attach it to the bag, it comes together really easily. So we are doing that with our gusset, and then that will have that gusset ready to attach once we finish up our exterior lining. So we'll sew that. We got to finish working on this pocket. We're almost done. You have one lining piece left for your pocket. Go ahead and place this edge right against the top of the zipper. We'll have our pocket right sides up. Simply lay your other piece right sides up. So the wrong side of your zipper tape is against the other lining piece. The linings are right sides together. We will just baste along the top. Put a clip or two in place so it stays steady. And I always like to look over, like flip it over and make sure everything looks like it's lining up on the sides properly, and it is. So I have that clipped in place. Let me put one more clip right here. So now that we have that, you could go ahead and baste those two together, but I feel like I can go ahead and attach this top piece and go ahead and sew it together too. Now you want to be careful with this because you don't want to get it off centered, so you want to make sure you take the time to center this piece onto your zipper tape and have everything lining up perfectly so that it looks really nice and neat at the end. So if you're doing it my way and sewing all the layers, just go ahead and sew with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. If you're doing the basting step and then adding this, you can baste first and then add that. Okay, so here is my zipper gusset completed. Now I want to make note of something. I almost always have to trim things up. I never have it perfect, whether the seam allowance gets a little off here or whether you cut a little off. So don't worry about that. Trim everything up to even. It's okay if your gusset is, a little bit less wide. That's not going to affect your finished bag. So say, for example, this is the gusset. Well, if it's just a little bit smaller, it's not going to affect anything. You just have a little bit less depth or width, however you want to say it, inside the bag. So don't stress over that part. Just trim everything up because that will make it easier when we attach it in this final step. If we left it untrimmed, that would give us more of an issue with maybe it not sitting properly and it would be uneven. So trim to make sure everything looks decently even. On that part, we're going to set this aside for just a minute. We're going to take out this interior pocket piece. We're going to pull up that top. We're going to top stitch just 1/8 of an inch away along that edge, and that will finish this piece. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim up my little zipper tab overhang here. And I'm going to come over to the back and I'm going to trim the overhang of my pocket, and then I am going to sew around these 3 sides to close everything up. Now there's a chance I will be able to catch these sides and the seam allowances, but I'm not taking that risk. So I'm going to sew down this side, across, and up here. If you were birthing, you would have to leave that open, but since I'm not birthing, I'm bonding, I'm closing everything up. When you're closing up this pocket, don't go over your seams. You don't want that part, but when you feel in here, you can tell that nothing's going to come out of this pocket. Those side parts will be sewn up and everything will be nice and secure. So now what I'm going to do, my next step is to go ahead and I'm going to baste these 2 pieces together. I'm going to have my zipper pocket against the front of my bag. I just feel like that would be better because we got to add the hardware to this back, and I feel like that would give a little too much bulk. So we are just adding the front pocket to the front of the bag. I'm just going to put these wrong sides together, a few clips, and I'm going to baste all the way around. I'll make sure it's lined up pretty nice and neat, and I'm just going to baste around it, and then this part will be done and I can set it aside. Have any major overhang on this, you can trim it up, but it shouldn't be too bad. It should be pretty close to the same size. Make sure that you have it the right way, like your front is going the right direction, your zip pocket's going in the right direction. So I'm going to set that aside, and now we are going to start working on the hardware for the back of the bag. So now we're going to take out the pieces that we haven't been working with. Here's our back panel, and here's our strap connector pieces. Okay, so we're going to take our strap anchor. We have 2 of them. We're going to have one right side up with the shorter edge towards the top. We will take our D-ring and we will have the raw edge hanging over the top. The pattern tells you about how much, and you're going to center that. So once we have it orientated like this, the next thing we're going to do, we are going to take our other strap topper and just lay it right sides down so they're right sides together, matching on all sides. It's going to be a little tricky to hold up, but I'm going to hold that up to show you, and I'm just going to clip around. What we are going to do then with this piece is we're going to sew 3 edges. We will leave this top open, and that is where we will turn. So I have that. Let me make sure that's pushed down just a little bit. Okay, there, that part is good. Then for our D-ring anchor, I drew a line from corner to corner, and I'm just simply going to cut. Now I'm only going to be using one of these because I'm only putting one on my bag, so I'll set the other side. This is my long edge. I'm going to fold along that long edge, right sides together, just like this. I'm going to take my other D-ring And I'm going to put it in here having an overlap like the pattern says. And you can see it's a tight fit in there. And then what I'll do on this one is I'm going to put some clips in place that is not staying up. Let me push it up a little bit more. I do want a little bit of an overhang there. Matching up those points. These points right here and this edge. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sew with the seam allowance given along this edge because I will turn through this bottom edge. So that's my next two steps. Let's go ahead and get those done now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off these corners, just diagonal snips there across the corners, not going into my stitching. And that's just going to help me get a better turn, like a little bit crisper turn. Okay, but you do want as crisp as possible. So I'm going to start pulling that out. I will use my stiletto to poke out the corners. Now what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to top stitch around all sides. So the side, top, side, bottom. I'm going to have this all completely sewn together. I'm going to go ahead and just trim up that little curve a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and trim off that point. And now I'm going to pull this so that it's wrong sides together. Use my stiletto to just smooth out that corner a little bit. And put clips, and again I will sew around all sides of this. This one's a little trickier because you don't have as much room, but go ahead and stitch around all sides of this one as well. Okay, so now we have these pieces top stitched around. I'm just going to trim up some threads and some overhang on some of these pieces so everything's straight. For your bottom piece, what you're going to do is you're going to have it so that your D-ring is angled up. You're going to come over here and you're going to put your D-ring just above this curve, and it's going to fit perfectly. But you just don't want to attach it at the curve. So you will just match up the raw edges, and we're just going to baste that into place. For the top, what we're going to do is we're going to center it and match up the raw edges with the top here and just have that centered in place. You should have center marks and your D-ring will be going down. And again, we will just baste this in place also. We're going to pull out that last lining piece that has nothing on it. I'm going to lay it right sides down, put the back wrong sides down, and so you're matching up the wrong sides, right sides up. And this is the way I'll sew it, just so my hardware doesn't bump in the way, but you can see it is wrong sides together. I'll just put a clip or two. You really don't need many clips in this because you're just going to baste it and it shouldn't shift any. Match up your edges and your sides, and let's just baste all around this piece. Okay, so now let's look at what we got. We have our front attached to a lining. We have our back attached to a lining, and we have our gusset. I'm going to make my marks off camera just so I'm not showing a pattern piece on camera, but I'm going to mark my tops and my bottoms, the center marks for them, and then there's also a mark for your gusset piece. That's your gusset seams right here. So after I get those marks, I'm also going to put my zipper seams together, and this is the way I'll do it. I'll just put a clip right here to hold these in place. And so then I can mark the tops, the center tops of my zipper and the bottom centers of the zipper. I will do this on both sides. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this raw edge and I'm going to match up the centers on the top. And of course mine's not right now. I'm just showing you how it would do. And the bottom. And my seams. And then I'm going to clip all the way around. I'll come back to show you what it looks like all clipped, and then we will sew it together. So I made my center marks and this marks for the side seams, and I went ahead and clipped the gusset on. I clipped the gusset right sides together with that front exterior. So you can see the zipper is what's against the exterior. The back panel will be against the zipper gusset piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to baste. I'm going to baste all around here to get everything secure. I find that's easiest because I'm going to come back with the binding and go the full seam allowance. These curves are just a little bit tight. Where it's a small bag, any curve is going to be a little tricky. So what I'll be doing is I'll use my stiletto to keep everything stabilized. If you're struggling, you could use glue to hold it in place. You can also use hemostats, whatever you need to do to make sure you get it secure. But I'm just going to go around 1/8 of an inch with a basting stitch, and then I'll come back and attach the binding. Okay, so now the gusset is attached. It looks adorable, but we just did the basting stitch. So now we need to grab the binding. I did cut my binding on the bias. I feel like that extra stretch really helps when going around curves. So what I'll do now, oh, and I did cut mine. I think this is 1.5 inches. Yeah, about 1.5 inches. So I felt like that's good. If you struggle with binding, you could go up to 1.75 inches, but we got to be careful because we have this zipper here and we don't want to get too close to the zipper to impede that. So we want to make sure we stay away from that zipper. I'll take my binding. I'm going to fold the raw edge wrong sides together, and then I'll take the right side and place it right sides with the gusset. So right sides together. I'm just going to put one clip here. I'm not going to clip the rest of the way around just because I'll be changing and moving things, so I don't need to do it. Clipping would actually be more of an aggravation at this point, so don't clip, leave it unclipped, and then you're going to sew with your full seam allowance with this binding all the way around the bag. So the binding is sewn on, so now what you do is you just flip your binding over. At the end, I overlap my binding the same way I started it, by folding the raw edge to the wrong side, so wrong sides together, and then I just don't have that bulk in the same spot. Just an easy way to finish it up. There's several methods of how to end your binding, but that's the way I do it. What I do now that I have it all flipped over is I start on my straight ends and I save my curves for last. And what I do is I simply fold that raw edge under, and then I fold the binding down to just cover up my previous stitches. So like you can see the stitches here a little bit, so that just means I need to roll it down a little bit more to get that where it exactly covers the stitches. That way I know I can meet that same seam allowance. I can sew with that same seam allowance and catch both sides and have a consistent looking binding on both sides. I don't have to worry about going over or missing things if you do it this way. Now, there definitely is times I miss binding. Everybody does. But this helps me get it the most consistent with the least amount of spots missed. I got this straight edge clipped, so then I'll just come over to another straight edge and clip it the same way. I will continue around doing this, and then I will save those curves for the last parts that I will clip, and then I'm just going to go around this and sew it exactly the same way with that same seam allowance given in the pattern. And from this way I will sew it with my lining right sides up, so I can just make sure I catch those edges. So now I've taken the binding and I've folded the edges under and pulled the edge of the binding just to where my previous stitches were. Now at this point, if you've done it properly, if you've sewed with a consistent seam allowance, the binding on, and then you folded it to where this edge just covers that first row of stitches, then when you sew the binding on, it should fit pretty perfectly. Like I've said in my previous videos, you can even hold your bag out and look at the binding. You can even put a stick pin through and see if it comes through on both sides to make sure that your binding is lined up perfectly. But I can look at this and I can see that I have it wrapped around to exactly, or roughly I should say, the same amount. Another thing I'll watch while doing this is this zipper area. I'm going to make sure I have plenty of clearance, which I do. And so everything should go okay. I'm going to stitch it from this side because I'm going to watch this folded edge to make sure I catch it properly. And I'm just going to go around the perimeter. After I get this done, the only thing left to do is repeat that entire process again for this second side for your back. So here's where I'm going to match up those seams on the gusset, and then I got my top and bottom centers marked. So whenever I attach the back, I'll place it right sides together and clip all around and do the binding the exact same way. I am still at this point undecided about my straps. I'm going to be thinking about it while I'm doing this binding. I'll try to think about it and figure it out. But I'm going to go ahead and finish binding this bag and taking care of all that. And then we'll come back and look at the finished bag and try to decide on the straps once and for all. So I finished sewing the binding on both sides of the bag. And now I'm going to open it up and just push it out and turn it right sides out. So now I finished my second Mav Pack, and this one is just as cute as the first one. Now it's time to decide finally on those straps. So I have two straps to make, one for this one and one for the one I showed you in the beginning. After looking at the pattern really well, I knew I had called for 1.5 inch webbing, and I was hoping I could adjust the little strap ends easily, and I could cut it down easily, but I decided I just wasn't going to. I didn't have any 1.5 inch webbing that matched these the way I wanted to. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a traditional strap like this, just a traditional adjustable strap, and use it that way. So the way I do that is I take a piece of webbing and I'm just going to wrap it around an adjustable bar. Fold one in under and then fold it back onto itself. And I'll do 2 stitch lines right there. I'm going to put 2 clips in place just to kind of hold it while we finish talking about it. Once I have that stitched down, I will just put a swivel hook through one end. Feed this other end of the webbing through the adjustable bar. Turn my swivel hook around. And on this other free end, I will add the other swivel hook and just fold it down twice as well. And sew across there. So this is the quick and simple way to do it. Not too fancy, but it will give me a functional strap so that I can finish up this bag because I already have plans for both of these. So I'll just stitch those 2 places off camera and be done. But the main thing to take away from this video is that this is an adorable pattern. The panels that Royal Pixie has for these are perfect. They are so cute, and it just adds a little bit extra to the adorableness of this pattern. They have several different styles, so I know you'll find one that you like. So look for the link in my description and you can check over all the different styles they have, the hardware kits and everything. And thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. And if you have any questions or suggestions, just leave them in a comment. I always reply. Thanks so much, and you guys have a great day.